Okay, I finished Zyglo testing the head, and the cylinder head does not have any cracks, which I didn't expect to see any. I also went ahead and did a 3-angle valve job on it. I went ahead and did this off camera because, again, if you don't have the equipment, you can't do it. And if you already have the equipment, you already know exactly how to do a 3-angle valve job. If you have one where the exhaust valves or the intake valves are burned or anything else, and you're going to need to do a 3-angle valve job, then select a good machine shop. If you do choose to purchase the equipment, I'm just going to throw this out there. I use the I use the New Way system, which is straightforward, a pilot that goes in, and cutter stones. Here's a 31-degree cutter stone tip. I prefer this to the motor drive or to the T-handle. I've got both. The motor drive on these can remove a lot of metal awfully quick. This is nice because you can push on it and it's spring bound, so you can control the tension, which helps reduce chattering. Number 2, with the handle, you can count the turns, so you can stay consistent in how much you cut off. And trick number 3, if you haven't cut valves before, take a piece of a blue shop cloth, cut it into a small square, put that in, and put your seat cutter over it. What it does is it makes the seat cutter a lot less aggressive, because if you're new to cutting valves, you're going to quickly learn that it's easy to chatter, and it takes a lot of experience to get the technique to where you can cut them without chattering. Incidentally, the racket you keep hearing in the background is the tumbler. It's a tumbler type parts cleaner, and it's cleaning the engine block. The engine block will be the next portion of this. At any rate, this cylinder head is now ready to reassemble. I'm trying to keep this video very simple so that the homeowner or the do-it-yourselfer will be capable of copying the procedure. Because of that, when I go ahead and put the valves in, I'm only going to use the valve adapter as opposed to the complete valve spring compressor. And that's strictly to compress the valves when we put the keepers in place. The next thing I wanted to say is definitely use a shop manual, because you don't want to try and rely on memory for what the specifications are on everything. Somebody once said that never try to memorize anything that you can look up, and that's why I keep going back to the service manual, particularly for the purpose of this video. It's not about egos proving what all you know. Let your ego relax a little bit and go look it up anytime you have any doubt. And even if you don't have a doubt and you look it up and it turns out you were right, that's fine too. First thing you'll notice is that the exhaust valve upper keepers are different than the intake valves. The upper retainers on the exhaust valves use a valve rotator cup. The whole purpose of that rotator cup is it pushes in on the spring slightly before it moves the valve, and that's to allow the valve to rotate as it comes up, because the spring is wound in a coil. The purpose is to try and reduce burning the exhaust valves. Before you put the valve springs on, first thing you want to do is make sure that the valve springs are square. You can either set them next to a true straight edge, or sit them next to each other and spin them. As long as the gap does not get wider and narrower, they're straight. If it gets wider or narrower, either one or both of the valve springs are out of true. Next thing to do is measure the free length. I'm at 2826 on this one. 29 millimeters is the standard. 27 is the minimum service limit. So these are well within, or excuse me, that one is well within. This one's at 2823. $28.37 on this one. About $28.16 on this one. You could also go ahead and measure the compressed tension on the valve springs. Honda does not give a specification for the compressed tension on these, so I'm not going to do that test. That and the fact that, generally speaking, the do-it-yourselfer is not going to have the arbor press to check it with anyway. The next thing to do is to install the valve guide seals. Obviously there's one for each valve. I'm going to use the same pilot that I use for centering the valve seat cutters, just as a tool to install it with. Put a little bit of oil on the pilot, slide the guide on the pilot, a little bit more oil on it, slide the pilot down into the guide, and then push the valve guide seal down into place. Let's go ahead and take a break for a moment. We'll start it where we left off.